day, Math Buddies! For this video, we will be learning all about mathematics. So just buckle up, relax, and all together, let's learn in an interesting and exciting way.
For today's video, we will be guided with this objective. Solve quadratic equations by factoring. In our previous video, we named four methods used in solving quadratic equation. These are by extracting square roots, by factoring, by completing the square, and by using a quadratic formula. But for this video, we will only be focusing on how to solve quadratic equation by factoring. The question is, what forms of quadratic equations are factorable? The forms are ax squared plus bx equals 0, perfect square trinomial, difference of two squares, and some quadratic trinomials that are factorable. Let us also bear in our mind the different steps on how to solve quadratic equation by factoring. These are: transform the quadratic equation in standard form if necessary, factor the quadratic expression, apply the zero product property by setting each factor of the quadratic expression equal to 0, solve each resulting equation, and to verify if our answer is correct, try checking the values of the variable obtained by substituting each in the original equation. Let's have our first example. Factor x squared minus 8x equals 0. What would be its solution? X squared minus 8x equals 0 is a kind of a quadratic equation where quadratic term and linear term are given. In this case, we need to factor out what is common between these two terms, and that is x. The factored terms now are x and quantity x minus 8 equals 0. We will set each factor equal to 0 as we apply the zero product property. This means x is equal to 0 and x minus 8 equals 0. It is very obvious that our first solution is already equal to 0. In this case, we will solve for the second solution, and that is by simplifying x minus 8 equals 0. Using addition property of equality, add both sides by 8, then simplify. The second solution is equal to 8. Let's go to checking. X squared minus 8x equals 0 is our original equation. Remember this. Substitute the values obtained from the original equation. So our solutions earlier are x equals 0 and x equals 8. So let's utilize the value of x which is equal to 0 from the original equation x squared minus 8x equals 0. By substituting it and simplifying it, it will obtain 0 equals 0. This means the first solution is a true solution, and that is equal to 0. If x is equal to 8, again, substitute this in our original equation. Substitute 8, simplify. Again, 0 is equal to 0. This also satisfies the original equation. This means x equals 0 and x equals 8 are true solutions of x squared minus 8x equals 0. Let's have our second example. Factor 3x squared minus 15x equals 0. So what would be its solution? So remember, the first step is that we need to transform the equation in standard form if necessary. In this case, 3x squared minus 15x equals 0 is already written in standard form. So we will skip step 1. Proceed to step 2 as we factor the given expression. So if our given is a quadratic term and a linear term, the best thing that we will do is to factor out the common factor. In this case, the common factor between 3x squared and 15x would be 3x, and the other factored term is x minus 5. Set each factor to 0. Applying zero product property, we have 3x equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. So let us solve for the first solution. Utilize the equation 3x equals 0. If we are trying to look at it, 3x equals 0 has a numerical coefficient of 3. So for us to eliminate it, divide both sides by 3. The first solution now is equal to 0. On the other hand, x minus 5 equals 0. Using addition property of equality, add both sides by 5. The second solution would be x equals 5. So for us to verify if our answers are correct, proceed to checking. Again, in checking, utilize the original equation. 3x squared minus 15x equals 0. And substitute the values obtained earlier are x equals 0 and x equals 5. So if x is equal to 0, substitute this from 3x squared minus 15x equals 0. Simplifying it, 0 is equal to 0. If x is equal to 5, again, substitute it from 3x squared minus 15x equals 0. Simplify, again, 0 is equal to 0. This means that the true solutions are 0 and 5. Let's have the third example. Factor x squared minus 64 equals 0. What would be the solution? X squared minus 64 equals 0 is a kind of a quadratic equation in the form of a difference of two squares. So it is easier for us to identify its factor because it was being introduced to us when we were in grade 8. So if our given is a difference of two squares, the possible factors would be quantity x plus 8 times quantity x minus 8 equals 0. Apply zero product property by setting each factor equal to 0. This means x plus 8 is equal to 0 and x minus 8 equals 0. Let us simplify first the left side of our equation, x plus 8 equals 0, using subtraction property of equality. Subtract both sides by 8. Simplifying it, the first solution would be negative 8. On the other hand, x minus 8 equals 0. We can simplify this by using addition property of equality. As we add both sides by 8, simplifying it, x is equal to 8. Therefore, the solutions for x squared minus 64 equals 0 are negative 8 and positive 8. Let us have our next example. Factor x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. So what would be its solution? X squared plus 4x plus 4 is an example of a perfect square trinomial. And it is easier for us to solve or to determine its factored terms because we can convert a perfect square trinomial into a square of a binomial. But in this case, we will present it in terms of two binomials. And that terms are quantity x plus 2 times the quantity x plus 2 equals 0. So as we apply zero product property, again, each factor will be equate to 0. This means x plus 2 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. Simplifying the left side of our equation using subtraction property of equality, the first solution is negative 2. The same process will be done to x plus 2. Using subtraction property of equality, the second solution is equal to negative 2. Let's have our next example. Factor x squared plus 7x minus 18 equals 0. What would be its solution? X squared plus 7x minus 18 equals 0 is a kind of a quadratic equation that is factorable. But of course, in this case, we will utilize the guess and check concept. In this case, our quadratic term has a numerical coefficient of 1. So for us to utilize the guess and check process, we will think of a possible factors of negative 18. The one that is in our constant term. So what are the possible factors of negative 18? We have negative 1 times 18, 1 times negative 18, negative 2 times 9, 2 times negative 9, negative 3 times 6, and 3 times negative 6. Out of these 6 pairs of our factors, which of them will satisfy our original equation? So for us to determine the possible factors, let us get the sum of these factors. let's get first the sum of negative 1 and 18. If we are trying to add this, the sum is 17. If we will get the sum of 1 and negative 18, it will lead us to negative 17. Adding negative 3 and 6, their answer is positive 3. While 3 and negative 6, the sum is negative 3. Negative 2 plus 9, it is 7. And 2 plus negative 9, it is negative 7. So, which of this factor will lead us to positive 7? That is negative 2 and 9. So, using this concept, let us determine the possible factors. We have quantity of x minus 2. The second factor is x plus 9 equals 0. Utilize the concept of zero product property. Set each factor equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0. X plus 9 equals 0. Simplify x minus 2 using addition property of equality. First solution, it is positive 2. Simplify x plus 9 equals 0. Using subtraction property of equality, x is equal to negative 9. Let's factor 2x squared plus 7x minus 15 equals 0. In this case, 2x squared plus 7x minus 15 equals 0 is a kind of a quadratic equation that is factorable. So again, utilize the concept of guess and check. So if we are trying to notice in this equation, our quadratic term has a numerical coefficient of 2. So it is very important for all of us to determine first the possible factors of 2x squared. In this case, we will have x and 2x. So in our binomials, we will have the first set of our terms. So we have quantity of x and quantity of 2x. Next thing that we will do is to look for factors of negative 15, our constant term. So what are possible factors of negative 15? We have negative 3 times 5, 3 times negative 5, 1 times negative 15, negative 1 times 15. So let us utilize the first pair of factors. I am referring to negative 3 and 5. That is x minus 3 times 2x plus 5 equals 0. For us to get the middle term, using the concept of FOIL method, the outer terms and inner terms will be added to make our second term, which is in this case 7x. So if we will multiply x and 5, the product is 5x. Multiplying the inner terms, negative 3 times 2x, the product is negative 6x. Again, getting the sum of these two will lead us to our middle term, which is 7x. But combining 5x and negative 6x, it will give us negative x. Thus, this cannot be considered as factor of 2x squared plus 7x minus 15 equals 0. In this case, let us try to swap these two factored terms. We will utilize 5 and negative 3. So our factored terms are quantity of x plus 5 times quantity 2x minus 3 equals 0. Again, multiplying x and negative 3, the product is negative 3x. Multiplying our inner terms, 5 times 2x, the result is 10x. Get the sum of these two terms. The result is 7x, and 7x satisfies the middle term of our given equation. These are factors of our given expression. These possible factors of 2x squared plus 7x minus 15 equals 0 are quantity of x plus 5 and 2x minus 3 equals 0. Applying zero product property, x plus 5 equals 0 and 2x minus 3 equals 0. So let us determine first the solution of x plus 5 equals 0. Using subtraction property of equality, subtract both sides by 5, simplifying it, x is equal to negative 5. This would be our first solution. While 2x minus 3 equals 0, using addition property of equality, adding both sides by 3, it will lead us to 2x equals 3. Divide both sides by 2. X therefore is equal to 3 halves. So let us remember this. Factoring can be used if the given quadratic equations are factorable, and not all solutions of a quadratic equation can be solved by factoring. Now, it's your turn. Solve the solutions or roots of the following quadratic equation by factoring. Here are our equations.